This is the very good afternoon to all the participants. Today is the second lecture of this series, and we are discussing today about the hyperspectral remote sensing processing techniques that we have to use for the processing of the data using for the geological application. So just a brief 1 or 2 slides about the yesterday's what we have discussed, like what exactly the hyperspectral remote sensing means. So it is also known as the imaging spectrometry. We have discussed it yesterday, and it is generally represented as the cube. This cube also we have seen what are the x and y axis shows, and the z axis are the basically wavelength ranges along which each and every pixel wavelength is recorded. Then the spectra, how we collect the spectra from the imagery and how do those spectra look like. Now let's come to the processing technique of the hyperspectral data. As I have already told you, and I have shown you the differences between the multispectral and the hyperspectral data set. So when we are dealing with the multispectral data set, we are capturing it, the data into the atmospheric windows. So when it is for the hyperspectral data set, as we are collecting the contiguous data, there is no gap in between. So the corrections are also important. So the processing techniques are also very much important, and they are a little different from the conventional multispectral remote sensing techniques. So what do we have to do for this? First of all, the standard or the ideal processing chart, as you can see over here in this. First of all, the data has to be changed into the apparent reflectance. Then you have to change or reduce the dimensionality, that is also known as the spectral data reduction. Then the third point comes spatial data reduction, that is your PPI. After that, the visualization, you have to visualize the data set into the n dimensional. And then finally, after visualizing it into the different dimension, you have to identify the end members, and then you have to classify them, okay, or map the minerals. So this techniques has been subscribed or described, summarized comprehensively by the Broadman and Cruz in 1995. And these techniques can be implemented using the commercial software that is known as ENVI, Environment for Visualizing Images. Okay, so let's discuss all these processing techniques one by one. So the first processing, that apparent reflectance, is basically correction of the atmosphere. So you just have to use the atmospheric correction, already available atmospheric correction tools present in the ENVI software, and you have to just change them into the reflectance, and after that different processing steps to be followed. So after the atmospheric correction or the first radiance image, whatever DN or radiance image we have got, first we have to convert it into the apparent reflectance, and that apparent reflectance has to be further reduced. That spectral data reduction techniques has to be applied so that the amount of data or the hyperspectral data what we have, it has got the large amount, it is very huge. So because of that, the computational burden is very high on the system. So what do we have to do? We have to ideally reduce the data in such a way that it has got the maximum value or the maximum information, but the noise or the redundancy, whatever present in the data, should be reduced. So for that, the first step that we should follow or we have to follow is the dimensionality reduction. So after that, PPI and visualization and member selection. So let's discuss first about the dimensionality reduction. So as I've already told you that it has got enormous amount of data, and because of that, the signals and noise all are intermixed with each other, and because of that what do we have to do? We have to reduce the dimensionality and we have to subset the spectrum of interest. First requirement, or to reduce the computational burden, or to reduce the noise, so that this SNR or the signal to noise ratio has increased. So because of this, the data reduction has been used or important. Now there are different methods for the dimensionality reduction or the data reductions: the principal component analysis, minimum noise fraction transformation, and independent component analysis. The principal component analysis transformation we generally do for the multispectral data set also. And the minimum noise fraction and independent component analysis are comparative to PC, are little advanced techniques, so they are used for the hyperspectral. Now the principal component analysis is what exactly the PCA is. You guys must have heard about the principal component analysis, because this is the term that we also use using the for the multispectral data set. Just what do we have to do? We have to reduce the dimensionality of the data, or we have to segregate the noise components in the data so that the dimensionality of the data is reduced. So what do? We just want to correlate, we produce the uncorrelated bands. Like all the, if we have plotted the pixels or the scatter plot into the wavelength domain, and what do we have to, when we plot it, the scatter plot, then what do we see? That the scatter plot, the pixels are scattered in such a cloud, data cloud. But in that data cloud, what happens? In the pixels are the data is highly correlated. So the information whatever available in that scatter plot is almost about some individual class or a few class, because that is very correlated one. So what do we have to do for the principal component analysis? We are basically trying to find out the set of new orthogonal axes, so that their origin is at the mean. Like this is the if you can see the black dots points available over here. So what do we have to do? What we have done in the transformation? First of all, we have shifted the origin to the mean, and they have rotated in such a way, or we have that PC1 and PC2 in such a way that the maximum variance is along PC1. Okay, and the second PC or the third PCs or the fourth PCs, all PCs will be perpendicular to the previous PCs. So PC1 is your first, PC2 is the second component, and that is orthogonal to PC1. And like this, all those different components. So the components or the PCs present or the output PCs are basically depends upon the number of input principal component analysis. So the dimensions or the number of bands what we get in the output is equal to the number of input bands what we have given. Now if the number of output bands are also exactly same as the number of input bands, then why do we have changed, or why do we have apply such algorithm to reduce the data? So when we have got the data set, when we have this principal components available with us, what do we have to do? Then we have to subset or find out the bands or the initial bands of the principal component results, like PC1, 2, 3. Those will have the maximum variance or the maximum information. And as we increase the number of PC, if there are 100 bands, then PC 100 will have the minimum number, minimum information, minimum variance. So what do we have to do? We have to select the initial few PCs which has almost 99% of the information, and then we do not have to go ahead for that. So the subsetting is done in such a way that PCs or the principal components which have got the higher eigenvalues are basically the principal components of importance, or important principal component, or the principal component with the maximum variance, or the components with the maximum information. And the second thing comes into the picture is the principal component or the PC bands are the linear combination of the original spectral bands, and they are uncorrelated as compared to the initial bands. Now it removes the less significant components and derive a new data set based on the important principal components. What do we have to do? All the principal component as a result we have got, we have to subset them in such a way that the resultant or the subsetted PC will have the maximum info. Now, how do we determine or how do we get the maximum information, or how do we subset the important principal components, or how do we decide that how many principal components are important for us or they are useful for us? So what do we have to do? If you can see carefully, there is a scatter, there is a plot over here. This plot has been plotted between the eigenvalues and principal components. So if you see or observe carefully, there is a notch you can see over here around 5. After the 5, the values are almost constant. So the principal components up to the eigenvalues of the first 5 components are very high. So 0 to 5 the eigenvalues are high, and from 0 to 5 PCs will have the maximum number of information, whereas after 5 it is almost constant. So values are, or the eigenvalues are almost close to 1 or 0. So they are basically deals with the noisy data. Higher the eigenvalue, higher the variance, higher the information present in the PCs. So the first 3 or first 5 principal components are important. Here we have written the first 3 principal components in the above example are associated with the eigenvalues 1.8, 0.99 and 0.1. Now, the eigenvalues are related to the amount of variation explained by the axis. It is usually typical to express the eigenvalues as a percentage of the total. So for the above example, PC1 has 63% info, PC3 has 33, PC2 has 33, and PC4 is 4% information. So first 66% information or 96% information are available with PC1 and PC2 only. So only 4% information left from PC3 onwards. So if I am taking the first 2 or first 3 PCs, then the maximum information or almost all information present in the data set has been covered using these 3 PCs. But do remember, this PC are not operating in the wavelength domain. So this characteristics of the typical wavelengths or the wavelength absorption dips won't be present with this principal component. For that, you have to again inverse PC to the wavelength domain. But only first 3, 4, 5 or 10 PCs which have got higher eigenvalues, you have to ignore or subset the PCs which have got near unity or 0 values. Those are of no use. So only initial 5, 10, 20 where we have got the notch or whose eigenvalues are very high to be used for the further processing. Now, so what exactly the limitations of this principal components are? That simple variance covariance correlation is only used in this. So these are very, very sensitive to the noise. Now, if we talk about the principal components and it says that it is very sensitive to the noise and our data is very noisy, then what do we have to do? So we have to derive some other mechanism in which the noise segregation happens firstly, and then we have to apply for this principal component rotation so that the values whatever we will get will be more close to the accuracy, or which or the principal components or the components which are reduced dimensionally are more reliable compared to the noisy component. So what do we do for that? We have a new method has been derived, or just the little advancement in the PC has been done, and this process is known as the minimum noise fraction. Now, what do we call this minimum noise fraction, or what do we understand by this minimum noise fraction? As the name suggests, the noise fraction or the noise present in the data is minimized. So in this MNF transformation, it is similar to the principal component analysis. And what do we do in this? We apply two cascade principal component or principal component rotations. In the first rotation, what do? We try to segregate the noise from the data. Okay. And in the second step, the standard principal component transformation, what we do is applied. So the first process in which the noise segregation has been done, so that is done, we have to estimate the noise covariance matrix, which decorrelates and rescales the noise present in the data. And because of that, and as a result, we get a transformed data which has got less noise. So all those data set which has got noise in it has no band-to-band correlations, and their variance is unit. So all the data with unit variance is noisy. So we have to subset them. And the remaining data set which has got noise whitened data, those noise whitened data will be again applied to that principal component transformation as we have done in the previous step. Mean origin shifted to the mean, then rotation of principal component in such a way in one direction there will be a PC1, and orthogonal to the previous PCs, the next PCs will be formed. Now the second step, this noise whitened data, same PC step has been followed. Then the whatever values we will be getting, they will have the, or the eigenvalues what we will get, they will have two parts. Okay, the first part will be the large eigenvalues or the coherent eigenvalues, and the other one is the noise dominated near unity eigenvalues. So we have to go ahead with the large eigenvalues, which are basically consistent of maximum information, whereas the complementary part is dominated by noise. Now the MNS transformation can be used to remove the noise, that it is understood. So it is done by performing the forward MNF transformation, and the eigenvalues, two components has already been decided. Now if we want, again I have told you as in the PCA that the forward rotation has been formed, or forward inverse, forward MNF or forward PC rotation has, the feature space has been changed to the principal components. Now it is no longer dealing with the wavelength feature spaces. So what do we have to do? We have to again inverse these data set. After removing the noise, we have to inverse the data set to the wavelength domain, so that we can get the correctly spectrum or the correct diagnostic absorption dips of the materials or the minerals. Now how do we estimate the noise statistics? So unlike for the PCA, two separate files has been produced. The first rotation में जो noise है, that is for the covariance data in the MNF noise statistics file. Then second rotation, eigenvector, eigenmetrics for the MNF statistics file. Now how do we estimate the statistics? It is just as we do in the dark current calibration or the dark surface calibration, what we do using this, our normal camera. Such kind of things has been done for calculating the noise. Like we have defined from the scene itself, we have defined an area which is completely dark or black pixels, and we have trained, or we have defined that black pixels as the noise. So those taking that as the reference, the things will be calculated, and that will be kept as the, and the noise statistics will be calculated out of that. Now again, how to select the good MNF band? It is exactly same as we have done using the PCA band. This is the example. You just have to observe the eigenvalue, eigennumber, or eigenvalue and MNF number graph. So in this, what you can see, there is a notch at 15. So the initial 15 bands are good, whereas as we increase the number of bands, the values are changing one by one. So if you see these bands, the screenshots of the bands I have kept over here. If you see them carefully, band 1, band 2, band 10, 15. So gradually band 15, band 20, they are appearing noisy also. If we see the eigenvalues also, the eigenvalue of band number 1 is high, gradually decreasing, and after 16 it is almost 1.8787, and very gradually the changes there, that is also can be seen from the graph. So the values are constant after 15th, and after 16th it is almost 1. So for this, what we are taking, we are just selecting the first 15 MNF bands as the input for the MNF, for the calculating the MNF statistics file or for the further processing technique. And only 15 bands will be reverse MNF to the, or it only initial 15 bands will be sent again to the wavelength domain, not all the whatever 112, 120 or 40 bands. So I hope this MNF and PCA processing is clear up to here. Then one more, the furthermore processing techniques or the data reduction technique, that is also the advanced version of MNF, is called the independent component analysis or ICA. In this, the advantage is that generally the distribution of data is not Gaussian. So this caters the non-Gaussian components, and it is used to obtain the independent and non-Gaussian components as compared to the uncorrelated and the Gaussian components in the PCA. The result of PCA are basically uncorrelated and Gaussian components, whereas in this we have got non-Gaussian components. So this is the equation, x is equals to AS, that defines the independent component analysis, where x is the random vector with the element x1, x2 up to xn, s1, s2 up to sm, and a is the matrix for all the elements a1, aij. Okay, so like this, if we are taking x is equals to as is the equation, so a1 for each and every line, a11, 12, 13, ij, i1 tak, we are taking the numbers constants, and s1, s2, s3 the number of observations made. So like this, the equation comes to x is equals to as, and this is the equation of the independent component analysis. So if we have idea of any two out of these three constants, this third one can be identified. This is also known as the blind source separation problem, because we do not have much information about the source in this data set. We only have our observations and the constant. Now for carrying out ICA, the following conditions are required. The first is all the values of S have non-Gaussian distribution and are statistically independent, whereas the number of sources, so if the values or the S, their distribution is Gaussian, then we won't be able to do this independent component analysis. The second term, the second values comes that m should be less than or equals to n, and the third condition is very low noise is permitted. Now m should be less than n, because if the number of observations are less than the number of observations are less than the number of constant to be derived or to be solved, then we won't be able to solve. So what do we have to do? The value should be more, n should be more than the n. So these conditions, the three conditions what I have described, are very much required for the uniqueness of the solution. If non-Gaussian components are present, then the solution will give a unique independent non-Gaussian component. An ICA solution can be obtained correctly if any one of its components is Gaussian. Okay, so from all the components, if any one is Gaussian, then only our independent component analysis or ICA will be able to solve it. Okay, now the second condition states that if the source are greater than the observation, then we won't be able to solve the equation. In initial mathematics stages also we studied that if we have to solve the or know the values of three constants, then we require minimum 3 or more than 3 equations. If we have to solve two constants, then 2 equations are required. So the number of constant or observations that we want to solve, the equations should be equal to the at least equal to the number of variables. So if we are not able to satisfy this solution, then we won't be able to get the unique solution. So for the simplicity, we are taking A as the square matrix where M is equals to N. So the independent components can be calculated by the inverse matrix multiplied by the observed signal. So this now just a quick comparison between PCA, MNF and ICA. So PCA is the orthogonal decomposition, and MNF is also the similar to the PCA, but it is noise adjusted, and the quality as the orthogonal, it produces the orthogonal components, and the orthogonal components are ordered by the image quality as a function of SNR rather than the data variance. Now, when we compare this with the ICA, so the ICA is the non-Gaussian assumption of the independent sources based on finding independent components. In ICA, the feature occupying in a small portion of the pixels, it won't be distinguishable from the noisy bands, whereas it will be distinguishable from the noisy bands. Whereas when we talk about PCA, the features which makes the very less or very insignificant contribution will be buried in the noisy bands. So when we are talking about geological application, actually this our area of our exposed area or geological feature that may occur into that may contribute to the very small part of the image. So if we are going for PCA, it may bury into that component, whereas when we are going for the ICA, that pixels can be distinguished or distinguishable using the independent component analysis. Now, that's all about the spectral data reduction. So what have we done? The number of components which are available with us, we have reduced the spectrum, we reduced the number of bands, and we try to try to retrieve the maximum information present in that, but we have tried to reduce the bands. But now that's why we have called this MNF, IC or PP as the spectral data reduction. Now, if we have, say for example, we still have got 10 or 20 bands, but the location of the or all the pixels present in those 10-20 bands are not pure, because for any classification of any data set, what do we want? We want to extract or we want to know the pure pixels present in the data set. Or if we are doing general supervised classification using for the multispectral data set also, what do we try to do? We will try to define or give the training classes, so that those A, B or C, D, whatever 3 or 4 types of classes. So we define those training sites or training classes in such a way that only these 3, 4 or 5 classes are present in the whole image, and then we have to classify the remaining pixels according to those 3, 4 classes. So what do we have to do for that? We have to just define that class. Now, when we talk about hyperspectral, we are defining that training class, or those training classes are basically known as the end members. So what that end member is? So those end members, and we are defining them according to their spectral characteristics, because whenever we are dealing with the hyperspectral data, we are dealing with the spectral characteristics of the data. So what we are trying to extract, we are trying to extract the spectral end member, and that spectral end member is the average spectral signature of the pure surface cover type in the image. Like any surface or any class that you want to extract from it, that is known as the end member for that particular image. There may be n number of end members present in that area, and you can get that n number of classes and can classify them into them. So either we have got a average spectral signature of the pure surface cover type that is present in the image, or we want to represent or classify a class which is present in the image, or it can be a mixture of two classes that we cannot separate or that we do not want to separate. For example, if I am interested in the class of mixture of water and vegetation, then that mixed pixel which has got the mixed spectra or the combined spectral signature of water and vegetation will be my AND member. So either my satellite data has got limitations, or my study area doesn't have that pure pixel, or I'm not interested in separating these two classes. I want to highlight the pixels which has got the mixture of water as well as vegetation. Then that will act as my AND member. Okay, so this will be first thing, or any pixel, like there are 5 classes present in that area. So class 1 is water. So the pure pixels or the pixel which has got the pure spectra of water will be my water AND member. Pure spectra of forest will be a forest AND member. Pure spectra of calcite, any open cast mine, then that will be my AND member calcite. Or if some other, for example, serpentinite mine is there, then the serpentinite will be my next AND member. So like this, the classes are present in the area. So we have to define the AND members whose pure spectral signatures are present in the image, or whose pure spectral signatures can be given to the image or to the algorithm to train. So how can you give? So these AND members can be collected either from the field or from the image or from the spectral library. Okay, there are 3 main techniques from which you can extract the AND members, either from the field, from the spectral library, or from the image. So if we are talking about image, we will try to find out or try to search or identify the pure pixels that belongs to each and every class present in the area. Or second thing, what we can do, we can go to the field, we can collect the spectrum of the materials present in the field, and then we feed those already collected spectrum, we resample them according to the resolution or the spectral sampling interval or the spectral resolution of our satellite data, and then what do? We resample them in such a way that those spectrum what we have collected from the ground, the spectrum can easily be trained or can easily be used as the training site to classify the pixels present in the whole image. Then third is from the spectral library. So for example, I cannot go to the field of that area, and I'm not able to identify the pure pixels from the image also. But I know that in the image there are A, B, C, D class present. For example, in the image there are talc, there is dolomite, there is calcite, and some say rock phosphate minings are there. So some dolomites. For example, I have got 3-4 classes. Talc is there, dolomite is there, and some calcite is there. So what will I do? There are some already developed spectral libraries present in the softwares. The widely used libraries are USGS, spectral mineral libraries. So those USGS mineral library we can use, and we can select the mineral calcite, dolomite, talc, and then we can apply the classification algorithm using those AND members that we have selected from the spectral library. But the best result will be obtained from either image or from the field, because those spectral libraries has been prepared in the ideal conditions, but when we are capturing the data, there is the annotations present because of the atmospheric and the other feature. Now, if you just see this picture, there are in this we have just plotted a scatter plot, and the 3 corners are present, A, B, and C. So if we are talking about the corner A, it is purely or 100% consist of the pixels or the class that is known as class A. If we are talking about B, all the pixels that belongs to class B, and C, then all the pixels that belongs to class C. So like this, 3 classes are present. Along the line AB, the mixtures of A and B will be there. Along the line BC, the mixtures of B and C will be there. AC, the A and C mixtures will be there. And at the center, the mixtures of A, B and C at the equal amounts will be present. Same with the two. If there are two dominant classes, then your scatter plot will look like this. At point B dominated by B, at point A dominated by A, and gradually when you're moving towards B to A, the composition of B is decreasing and A is increasing. So like this, the number of mixtures present in the area will be seen or can be understood by seeing the scatter plot. So if the scatter plot is like this, it is mixture of, or there are three modes, three nodes can be seen, then these the three main dominant classes are present, four are there, then four are present, and like this. So the number of classes present and the number of end members, the according to 3, 4, 5 dimension feature spaces will be formed, and those can be seen using the different tools present. So now this out of this, we have already studied this MNF, the atmospheric correction tool, and now we are dealing with the pixel purity index or the spatial data reduction technique. Now this is the processing technique. It is designed to determine the pixels where the pixels are the most spectrally unique or the pure pixels, and due to the large amount of data, what we do, we apply this PPI to the subset of MNF or the PCA. If you remember correctly, and just when we are studying that PCA and MNF, we have I have said that for the further processing, we will be taking only few, say 10 or 8 or 15 bands, 10, 12 or 15 bands, which were only 10, 12 or 15 bands will be taken further to reduce the computational burden, and those bands will have the higher eigenvalues, only those will be used. So those 10, 15 bands we have taken and we are taking it ahead, and those 10, 15 bands we will apply the PPI algorithm on those. So we have just done that, and this is the scatter plot what we have got. So in this you can see that two dominant classes, in fact 3 dominant classes, 1, 2 and 3 dominant classes are present, and in between there is a mixture. So if I want to collect the end member or the pure pixel, I have to choose the cornermost pixels which are separated from the cloud, because the pixels which are appearing in between the clouds, those pixels are the mixed ones. So the pixel purity algorithm, what it does, it randomly plots the pixels into the this scatter plots, and each time a particular pixel is appearing as the extreme, it will give it a count. So for example, I have applied this principal component in the pixel purity index for 10,000 times. I have given that I have to go for 10,000 times. Then out of 10,000, how many times a particular pixel is appearing pure will be marked in the PPI image. So all those pixels which are appearing pure either once, twice or 100 times or 10,000 times will be marked as the white, and the pixels which are not appearing as the extreme pixels or which are not found as the end member from the PPI algorithm will be marked dark or black in the image. So your PPI image will look like this. So as I have talked, I have said in the initial slide also, the spectral data reduction and the spatial data reduction. Now if you see this carefully, the pixels which are appearing black are not the pure pixels. These are not the end members. So if I have to concentrate or I have to choose for the training sites or for the end members from the image, what do I have to do? I only have to concentrate only on the white pixels or only the pixels which are appearing bright or white in this image. So these are basically the location of the pixels which are appearing white in the image. So you just have to see these pixels white pixels which are appearing in the image, and those pixels only has to be seen carefully. Those spectra has to be studied carefully, and then accordingly you have to define the classes. So you can see over here the example, all the black, the data value is 0, the bright, the data value is 189. Now the value of this bright pixel, it may vary from 1 to the number of iteration you have given. If you have given 10,000 iterations, so some of the pixels may appear as the pure pixel in 10,000 times. So all the pixels which are appearing white are basically pure pixel. They may appear 10, 20, 100, 1000 or 10,000 times, but they all will appear white. And all the pixels which have not appeared even single time, they all will have the black color. They will all appear black in this, and the data value will be 0. The data what you can see in the pixel purity image is the count, how many times that pixel has appeared as the end member or the pure pixel. So this is it's like if you have applied this for 10,000 times, then this result will show that how many pixels are appearing as the pure pixels in the number of iterations gradually. And gradually when this plot this curve gets smoothened or the flat, it means all the pure pixels were identified or found by the algorithm. So you need not to increase the iterations. So around 10,000 iterations or 15,000 iterations according to the statistics or according to your data quality will be selected. Now, whenever you have selected the pixels using the pixel purity index, you reduce the spectral dimension using the ICM and FPCA. You have reduced the spatial dimension using the PPI. Now you have to concentrate only the pixels which are appearing bright in those 10 to 15 MNF bands. So what do? You try to import or try to see them into the individualizer. The dimensions are the same as number of MNF bands or the PCA bands. If you have taken 10 MNF bands, then 10 dimensions can be seen. If you have taken 15 bands, then 15 dimensions can be seen. Now in this 10 dimension or 5 dimension or 10 dimension, you have to watch carefully the pixels which have appeared pure in the pixel purity index. You just export them into the individualizer, and then you try to finally sort out or define the classes over here. So if you see some pixels are appearing in this corner, some are appearing over here in this corner. So these corner pixels will be of our interest, and we will get the number of classes from here. So like this, if I have done it in 7 dimension, these are the pixels which are separated from the cloud. This is the cloud. So these are the pixels which I have separated. So there is a one bunch of pixels, say 5, 6. This I have exported as a one class. The pixels which are appearing on the another direction, they will belong to the different class. So like this, I can define the classes from here, maybe 10, 20 or 90. The number of classes is up to you. So after this, all these end members which we have got, all these processing techniques, finally we have got the training sets, and those training sets will be used for the classification and for the other processing techniques. So still now we have discussed all these up to the processing techniques, and then we will